Welcome to Retire Right Washington. The team at the Retirement Solution has been helping families plan for a successful retirement. The Retirement Solution helps you learn about strategies for creating income in retirement, managing your wealth, and minimizing taxes. Welcome to Retire Right Washington.
What's one big thing that could ruin your retirement? It's making a costly money mistake. But the good news is you can learn ways to help avoid them. So today on the show, Tom Black and Matt Perrone, they're here to show you how to help preserve your savings and help keep your retirement on track. Welcome everyone to Retire Right Washington. I'm Megan Mozak. Tom and Matt are back. Good to see both of you again.
Good to be here.
Okay, we've got a big show today. We do want to talk about this today, the number one money mistake that you see people make. Tom, you've been at this a while now. What is it?
The number one? There are so many competing number ones here. I think I would have to go with taking too much risk in retirement. Because that's the thing I see consistently when people come in, is that they are way more at risk than they should be, and they don't even understand how much risk that they have. So certainly taking too much risk is one of the top ones. And then, you know, we talked in one of the other shows about taxes and sneaking in. That's got to be another one that they're taking on that they don't even realize that they're taking on as a risk.
Okay, so you say sometimes folks are swinging for the fences, right, when they should just be going for singles and doubles at this point. Can the opposite be true? Are we sometimes not taking on enough risk in retirement? Is that a risk?
Well, we certainly see that, not as often. But we do see people coming in who have been in cash for quite a while. They were concerned about whatever was going on in the news, whether it was COVID. We've had people who went to cash then and have stayed in cash since then. We've seen others that have had other issues that have triggered them to go to cash. And so they're giving up an opportunity. It's that, you know, they're slowly dying and they don't, on paper cuts, and they don't even realize it. So we do see that, but not as much as the ones who have just been continually in risk more than they should have been.
It happens a lot. Yeah, there's the age-old adage, right, of what got you here isn't going to be what gets you to the next destination. And risk is what got people to have what they have. But then what sometimes is missed is, but now the game has changed in retirement. And so that's where that risk, it's not like people need to get all the way out of the market, like you said, but we just need to do some adjusting.
Okay, what is that adjusting? How do you help people come to understand the appropriate amount of risk they should be taking?
One of the only rules that we have as a firm is that someone's income cannot come from a risk investment. Because the phone call we never want to make is, oh, hey, Megan, the market went down, so you know that trip you wanted to take or the thing you wanted to do with the grandkids? I'm sorry, you can't afford that anymore. I never want to make that phone call. So how does one determine how much risk one needs? It depends on how much you want to spend. It depends on when you want to spend it. And that's where we will develop a plan that says, hey, in these years, you're going to spend from this, and these years, you're going to spend from this. And then that drives what needs to be invested in what way.
Okay, so really, Tom, this risk issue is central to how you come at the planning, how you look at it, really how you begin.
It is. I mean, when we meet with someone and we're working through deciding what should we do here, our first consideration is making sure that they're not taking risk in the money that they're going to spend in the next 15 to 20 years. And there's a lot that's in that little statement of not taking risk. There's certainly, we want growth. We want to get as much growth as we can, but we want to make sure that we're not risking it to do that. And there's lots of different ways to do it, depending on everybody's situation. But there is also, as Matt mentioned, an appropriate amount of risk. Money you don't need for the next 15 to 20 years, that can be in the market. You know, whatever's going on in the world at that moment isn't going to change your money in 15, 20 years. The market's never seen a down market that lasted more than 10 years. I mean, we've seen lots of things from the Great Depression to the lost decade, but we've never seen one that, if you're out 15 years, you're going to be in good shape. And so it's really an organizational thing that is individual. It just, everybody's situation is a little bit different. What do they want to do? When do they want to spend? Legacy money, all these kinds of things you want to take into consideration.
And this really is a mindset shift, isn't it? Because we were talking about swinging for the fences, but really you want to be doing that in your younger years. You got to shift that, don't you, Matt?
100%. And what you said there was so key too, mindset. You know, we deal as financial planners, we deal with a lot of numbers, of course, and we talk about a lot of numbers. Oftentimes I find though that we have to take off our financial planner hat and kind of put on the life coach hat, if you will, with clients and just discuss, listen, your life is different now. You're not 30 and 40 years old anymore. And so it just requires a different way of thinking about it. And that's a fun part, though, to go through with people.
I heard 65 is the new 35, though. I don't know about our audience, but you know, sometimes you can feel a lot younger. Yeah. But you're right. That life coach hat is probably really key. Again, let's not be overextended with our risk. Really interesting conversation. We're going to keep this going. Okay, Matt, Tom, thank you. And stay with us because coming up, Tom and Matt, they're going to share some key steps to help keep your savings safe from those costly mistakes we've been talking about today. Later, Matt shows you some ways to figure out if your retirement plan has sprung a leak. We'll talk about that later in the show. We'll be right back.
When it comes to planning for the future, time may not always be on your side. Think about your taxes. Tax rates are historically low right now, but they'll likely be higher in the future. With the right planning and strategy, you might be able to cut your tax bill in the years to come. But don't wait until it's too late to take advantage of today's lower tax rates. Let us be your partner in planning for tomorrow so you can enjoy your retirement today.
How does your future look in retirement? When you don't have a strategy, the future might look a little fuzzy, but with someone asking the right questions and helping you learn where you truly stand, it can become easier to work towards your goals. You need a plan to help generate income that will last as long as you need it. And the first step to creating an income plan is an analysis of where you are now. Let us help you bring your retirement into focus with your free income analysis today.
On the surface, your retirement plan might look solid. With your 401k or IRA, Social Security, investments, and insurance coverage, you appear to have it all covered. But what could you be missing? Below the surface, is your retirement exposed to too much risk? It's time for a deeper dive into your portfolio. We can help you uncover the risk that lies beneath the surface and learn about strategies to help preserve your savings. Get your free risk analysis today.
Welcome back to the show. This is Retire Right Washington. We're glad you're with us today. Now here's a question for you. Do you think you're doing enough to preserve your savings, or could there be a hole in your plan? We're going to find out. We're back with now Tom Black and Matt Perrone. No one wants a hole in their plan, right? You don't want a hole in your sock, a hole in your plan. The sock is less important than your retirement plan. So let's talk about what could be this hole in your plan for retirement, Tom.
Well, there are several, but let's talk about the big ones, the ones that we hear the most, or we want to make sure people are thinking about. First one is always taxes. People don't really understand how taxes are going to affect them, not just next week and next month, but how those taxes are going to build over the next 20 to 30 years of retirement. One that we're hearing a lot about right now is healthcare. How do we cover our healthcare costs in retirement? And those numbers can be staggering when you look at them. And those are ones you really want to step back from and break down a little bit more, but make sure that you're planning into that. And I think another one that people are taking too much of is risk, and not again thinking about what am I going to do, and so that puts them in a situation where they're panicking when the news comes across. Oh my gosh, I got to do this. Oh my, I better go buy that. Tesla. Better sell Tesla. Not better buy Apple, but no, better own, and they're constantly trying to live their retirement through whatever's flashing across the news. So those are some of the big ones that we're hearing about, but there's also other things that are going on that can affect your retirement. And one that no one ever wants to talk about is what happens to my retirement if one of the two of us dies unexpectedly or even expectedly. How does that affect us? And so we want to make sure that we're looking at a lot of these different pieces in order to make sure that you do have a retirement plan that is going to take care of you, not just for the next 3 years, but really for that next 20 to 30 years of your life when you don't have a plan B.
So a lot of risks lurking out there. I think we called them holes in your plan, and you talked about taxes and healthcare and risk, and even your spouse passing away. That can be a risk. My mind was spinning, Matt, when Tom was talking about all of this. You know what I started thinking about? How different retirement is today than it was maybe for our grandparents. It was so much more straightforward. They didn't have to be tax experts or understand, should I buy Tesla going into retirement or not, right? And we have so many, or Bitcoin. We have so many different, I don't want to call them distractions, but we have a lot of different channels. It's this omni-channel world we're living in. This has to be where having the trusted professional really can be a benefit.
Yeah, and you summed it up well there, Megan. You know, there was a time where retirement was retire and maybe your life expectancy is 10 more years and you have a pension from your employer and that's kind of it, and Social Security. It's, as you said, there's a lot of different channels now. And so Tom described them all very well. And we're going to sound a bit like a broken record when we say what you need to do is have someone to help you build a plan for all these things. And you know, so here's some things that I see where people think they built a plan, but they may have not done it fully. So for example, Tom mentioned taxes. Some people will tell us, oh, I have an accountant that does my taxes for me. That's my tax plan. That's great. I'm thrilled you have an accountant. That's not really tax planning, though. That's not exactly something that's going to help you minimize taxes over the long term. Typically, we see that as more of a tax history type of thing. Or healthcare, being concerned about a long-term care expense or end-of-life medical care. People see these statistics that, you know, you'll spend 25% of your money in the final 12 months of your life or something like that. That may or may not be true for you. So there are ways to plan for that don't necessitate you living less of a life today. So anyway, all that goes back to what you said about building a plan so that you know how it's going to work for you.
This is a great insight, particularly on the accountant, because I would imagine, Tom and Matt, you would agree, having financial professionals around you is a good thing. But Tom, I've heard you say in the past that simply preparing taxes, that's looking in the rear view mirror. I think what you're talking about is let's look out the windshield for our tax approach. What does that look like?
Well, that's going to look different for everybody, but you're right. I mean, if I have someone doing my taxes, they're looking at what I did last year. And they might have a suggestion for how I could adjust this coming year for something. But what they're not looking at is that next 5, 10, 15, 20 years out into the future and really planning for that. And that's where you really want to be creating your strategy, not reacting to what happened last year. And so taxes certainly comes up a ton. And that needs to be part of your plan. But again, I think you know there are so many of these other things that can get overshadowed by talking, oh, we're just going to tax. Taxes is not your only solution. You're going to pay taxes. What we want to make sure of is that you are living the life that you wanted and that you are able to do some of these fun things and still be okay. I would rather see someone pay a little extra taxes and take all of their kids and their grandkids on a Disney cruise and create some memories that the kids will never forget, versus worrying about the tax. Well, I really would love to do that, but I don't want to pay an extra $5 in taxes. You know, that can really get the cart in front of the horse there.
Yeah.
So we don't want to focus too much on that. We really want to be thinking about what do we want to do and how do we get the plan to create it, and not expose ourselves to all these risks. I mean, I one time put a list together of risks for clients that I'd heard, and it was in the 80s and 90s. So we could really create a lot of risk, a lot of concerns for you, but that's not how you want to run your retirement.
Okay, terrific insights. So we're going to keep the ball rolling, because coming up next, Matt will help you find out ways to help make sure that your retirement plan is seaworthy. Does that sound strange? Well, trust me, you're going to want to see what I mean by this. So stay with us. You're watching Retire Right Washington.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your healthcare is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
On the surface, your retirement plan might look solid. With your 401k or IRA, Social Security, investments, and insurance coverage, you appear to have it all covered. But what could you be missing? Below the surface, is your retirement exposed to too much risk? It's time for a deeper dive into your portfolio. We can help you uncover the risk that lies beneath the surface and learn about strategies to help preserve your savings. Get your free risk analysis today.
So imagine this, you're paddling a boat, you're out in the middle of a lake, and then you find out your boat is slowly filling with water. That sounds pretty scary, right? Well, unfortunately, the same thing can happen with your retirement plan. So we're going to talk to Matt today about what to look out for so we can stay afloat in retirement. Matt?
Thanks, Megan. So folks at home, for the next couple of minutes, let's explore this analogy of a leaky boat. Imagine being out at sea, like Megan said, and you're off doing your adventure, whatever it is, and suddenly you notice, oh no, there's some slow leaks that are starting here or that have been happening for a while. Big, easy leaks or big waves off in the distance, those are easy to notice, right, and to avoid, but it's those little things that are sneaking up on you that you're not always aware of that in the end can hurt you the most. So when it comes to retirement planning and financial planning, what are those slow leaks that you should be aware of? Today I want to walk you through 3 of them and how to avoid them. So, before I show this picture, you have to promise at home not to judge me for my lack of art skills, okay? So I have a very detailed schematic of a boat here, as you can see. And basically what's happening is there's 3 different leaks that are going on here. Fees, taxes, and INF stands for inflation. So let me go through each one of these bit by bit so that you can see what I'm talking about. The first leak that could start to drown your boat before you're even aware of what's going on is fees. A lot of what's out there in the investment world is a 1% fee or a 1.5% or 2% fee, something like that. And on the outset, it doesn't sound that terrible. Well, what ends up happening is that, that 1% actually starts to eat into your returns over time. And if you do some math, it can really make a huge difference in what's left over for you to actually spend and what's left for your legacy if you're trying to leave a legacy behind. When you come in to see us at the Retirement Solution, something you should ask us about is our flat fee structure that works very differently than a percentage fee that does our best to plug that leak so that it doesn't just eat into everything you've got in the future. Okay? So that's one thing to be aware of. Thing number 2, taxes. This also happens slowly. You file your taxes once a year, and sometimes people just say, well, it is what it is, it's my percentage. We've got to be careful on this one, especially because in retirement, there's a whole new tax speed bump, if you will, that you're going to run into that you don't run into when you're younger, and that's required minimum distributions. Those happen under current rules when you turn 73, and basically what happens there is the government says, hey, Matt, you know all that money you've been deferring your taxes on and your 401k and all that stuff? Well, you can't defer them anymore. I'm going to force you to take money out, and I'm going to force you to pay taxes on money that you may not even need. And then this also applies when you pass away, and if money is left behind to the kids, now that money is going to have a lot of heavy taxes paid on it. So we want to do our best here to plan for this and to plug this hole in the early years of retirement so that it doesn't just keep filling up the water and filling up the boat and scuttling it, okay? The last one is inflation. Now this is one where, again, it seems like it's not as big of a deal at first, a little bit of inflation year by year. What can happen if we're not careful is in those early years of retirement, inflation can force you to spend more than maybe you were originally thinking. This is why it's important to sit down and to draw up a plan that accounts for inflation, that allows you to spend what you know you can confidently spend early on, What we're actually usually able to find is that later on in your retirement years, say 15, 20, 25 years into retirement, we're able to find ways to negate the effects of inflation because of your lifestyle changes or discretionary spending. Everything depends on your situation, but if we're able to make a plan for it in the long term, we can, again, plug parts of this hole so that it doesn't end up causing big troubles later. So that's it for the leaky boat analogy. These are the 3 things we encourage you to be aware of. Come in to see us so that we can get this fixed for you. All right, Megan, back to you.
Thanks, Matt. Coming up, we'll take your questions about ways to make your money last in retirement. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Retire Right Washington.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your health care is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
When it comes to planning for the future, time may not always be on your side. Think about your taxes. Tax rates are historically low right now, but they'll likely be higher in the future. With the right planning and strategy, you might be able to cut your tax bill in the years to come. But don't wait until it's too late to take advantage of today's lower tax rates. Let us be your partner in planning for tomorrow so you can enjoy your retirement today.
And we're back. We're glad you're with us. And this is a great part of the show. We get to hear from you and answer your questions. I won't be answering them. I can promise you that. It's Tom Black and Matt Perrone, the guys in the hot seat. And we're really looking forward to some of your insights here because we have a lot of good questions. We're going to try to get to just as many as we can here today. So Tom, we're going to start with you. And we have a great question from Bill in Burbank. And he says this: what are some ways to keep my savings from shrinking during retirement?
Well, Bill, I think the answer there is real simple. Don't spend money. Now, that aside, it's not so much about not shrinking, because now you've got to switch your mindset. You've been in an accumulation mindset where you've been growing your assets for the last 30 years of working. When you get into retirement, we're going to be now in what's called the distribution phase. And the question, the way I would rephrase that question is, how do I distribute or spend my money and have the least impact on my long-term survivability of my retirement accounts? Now, that's something you really want to sit down with a professional and say, how do I do this? What does this look like? What does it mean for me individually and my goals and my plans versus, I don't really care what Bob down the street's doing. I care about me and how does it affect me? So that's really how I would look at that.
All right. Again, really good insights, things to think about, especially for Bill, who was kind enough to submit that question. And now, Matt, we're going to turn to you. This question comes in from Stephanie in Martindale. She says, should I be worried about inflation cutting into my savings?
Oh, okay. So, Stephanie, your question is becoming more and more common. A little bit of semantics, if you don't mind. I would say worried if you don't have a plan. Once you have a plan, though, that's when that worry can just change to a concern, but the box has been checked, if you will, right? And what we typically find out there is, yes, inflation is real. We all see it when we go to the grocery store, when you do any kind of shopping these days, right? It's happening. What we typically find is that as we build plans for people, though, inflation isn't as much of a long-term concern as it may have been, say, for someone my age, for example. Typically in retirement, what we see is that discretionary spending goes up for a little while, but then as people get into the later stages of retirement, they start to spend less. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I think we've done a whole segment on just that occurrence in the past. But just to briefly say it for now, inflation is a concern, but not something that should drive people's concern to spend less today. There are ways to plan for it.
Okay, so as long as you've worked that plan to mitigate the impact of inflation, and you're right, we do see it, right? The gas pump, the grocery store, it feels like it's more prevalent than ever. It just has to be worked into your plan. So good to note that. All right, Tom, you ready for your question here?
Sure.
Okay, this one comes from Edward in Pasco. He says, I just retired. How do I know if I have enough money to last?
Okay, Edward, That is really an insightful question to be asking. It's something that I think everybody should be asking as they go into retirement. Do I have enough? And the answer is, it depends. It's really the relationship between your assets and your spending. I've worked with clients who have, $700,000-800,000 who will never spend all the money that they have. And I have other clients I've worked with that have $2-3 million who were a little worried about running out of money. So it does come down to how are we spending? How does your plan fit together so that you are able to not worry about that? And a good plan will help you see into the future as to what your spending looks like. And one of the things I love about creating plans for people is to be able to look at that and say, listen, we've done this a few times, quite a few times. And if you stick to the plan, you're going to be fine. And you're going to be fine in your 70s, you're going to be fine in your 80s. And if you make it into your 90s, you're going to be okay as well. And so that's really how we want to start looking at it, is how does that relate to your spending? And if, to Matt's point in an earlier time we talked about, maybe you could spend a little bit more than what you've been thinking you could spend if you've got, once you get organized.
Okay, and that plan you keep referring to, that's really what can bring so much confidence, right?
Yeah.
To say to yourself, okay, I met with Tom, I met with Matt and the great team there, and boy, we've got a plan. So if I do, because we don't know how long we're going to live. And so if you do live into your 90s, right, you can have the confidence that that plan is going to carry you through. Okay, absolutely. Matt, let's talk to you now, because we do have a question from Linda in Richland. And she says this, I'm worried about taxes taking a big chunk of my retirement. What should I consider?
Yep. So earlier I rephrased the word worry to concern. This is one that I would say absolutely be worried about. What we see usually looking at folks' situation is that taxes is the #1 expense over the course of someone's life if it's not planned for correctly. So what should someone like Linda consider? Well, what we'd want to look at is the nature of the accounts as they exist today. The average person, when they meet with us, regardless of the total dollars that they have, I'd say is somewhere around 80 to 90% in pre-tax accounts, which means that the government has control over 80 to 90% of the money. If that's where Linda's situation is or someone similar, we'd want to look at how to undo some of that over time. We'll want to consider what's called required minimum distributions, which under current law is when someone turns 73, that's when the government can force you to take money that you may not even need. So we'll want to look at those things and just say, hey, listen, here's where you are today. Here's where you're going to be in 5, 10, 15 years. What can we do today so that you're paying less over that time frame?
That sounds good to me.
Yes.
And taxes, just a huge risk. So we've covered a lot today, as we always do each and every week, and some great questions from our viewers and awesome insights from the two of you. We'll do it again next week. Tom, Matt, thank you so much. So today, if you're thinking about looking at retirement, if you're thinking about the plan that you need and ways to preserve your savings, we encourage you to reach out to Tom, Matt, and the team. They'll help you create that plan that can help you stay on course. For Tom, Matt, and the team at The Retirement Solution, I'm Megan Mozak. Thanks for watching Retire Right Washington. We'll see you next time.